A podcast? Did your radio show get canceled?
Fire. Low down and filthy, but the discipline is on point. Schooled myself, made my own dojo. A cold flow with the whole dose of soul. Maintain composure, even in fury. An anomaly, properties undiscernible.
This week on The $1 Million Plan, we have wrapped up travel for the year. And by we, I mean me. I don't know what you're doing. I've made my last flight of the year after 160 some flights. I'm so glad to be on the ground, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Maybe a little bit more. But here's what we're doing on the show. If you just joined us, I am Pete the Planner. Go to PeteThePlanner.com to learn more. Here's what we're doing on the show today. A store credit card conundrum. Nicole, I will need her assistance on that. Then we're also going to talk about a nutty medical bill that I got in the mail, and then I got sent to collections 2 days after I got a medical bill. Quite the story, and it actually piggybacks off of the voicemail story from a few episodes ago. Then we're going to answer a retirement question. A USA Today reader named Greg emailed us, so we're going to answer his question and so much more. But let's get started. So later today, I'm shooting a television commercial for the state of Indiana's 529 college savings plan. And so I don't know if you've ever done a television commercial, but let me give you a little inside baseball. Here's what happens. You get a script, you get an itinerary, a rundown, sort of a treatment for what's going to happen. And it says things like, Mr. Dunn. And Nicole, you saw, they were calling me Mr. Dunn throughout this document. It was very uncomfortable.
Yes, they did.
It was very, very uncomfortable. So one of the lines says, to the makeup artist, Mr. Dunn has a beard now, right?
Yes, that's my favorite line in the entire...
Yeah, Mr. Dunn has a beard. Okay, so we find out that. And they also tell me what to wear, right? So I'm wearing a sweater. They're like, hey, wear a holiday sweater. And so I don't own a holiday sweater, as you would hope. So I had to go out and buy a holiday sweater, which gets us to the crux of our story to begin. I don't own any store credit cards whatsoever. I just don't. I had one store credit card when Mrs. Planner and I got married back in the year 2000. We got a Pier 1 Imports credit card. Why? Because what newlyweds don't need Wicker and Petepourri, right? So much so that they can't finance it out of their own checking and savings accounts. So we went and we took out a store credit card because what did the clerk say as we were buying, wire art pieces to hang in our bathroom? That's what you buy at Pier 1, by the way. It's just like wire art sculptures for your toilet room. So they were like, hey, do you want to save 10% by opening a Pier 1 credit card? And we were like, well, yeah, 10%. Are you kidding me? It's like $8. Of course we'll compromise our financial future by doing it. So we signed up for the store credit card. We paid off the wire structure that we bought, or wicker, or whatever we bought. Maybe some chairs. I don't remember. Definitely potpourri. And then years later, we closed it because it was just silly. It's like, why do we have this floating out here? But every time you go to the mall, every time you go to a store, you're faced with this conundrum. You go to Target, and the person in the red shirt's like, do you want to put that on your red card? And if you put on your red card, you can save 15%. And then you say, no, I'm good. And they say, well, really, you could, it would be a good idea. And then you start taking financial advice from a store clerk. Now, I would normally say something like, no offense, store clerk. But why would you take financial advice from a store clerk? Okay, so earlier this week, I had to go buy a sweater. Right? I'm not a Christmas sweater guy. I'm not a Hanukkah sweater guy. I'm not a Kwanzaa sweater guy. I'm just not a holiday sweater fella. Okay? So I go to the Fashion Mall. If you happen to be in central Indiana, there's a mall called the Fashion Mall. Where else would you buy a holiday sweater than a place called the Fashion Mall? So I go to the Fashion Mall and I go to a store and I find a sweater. Now, Nicole, I have not showed you the sweater yet. It's out in my car because I'm going to have it for later today. You'll probably make fun of it. It's sort of a dad sweater.
Ooh.
And I showed it to my wife. She's like, that looks pretty bulky. It could make you look a little heavier on television. So this whole thing is a disaster. All right. So number one, I'm going to look like a dad, which is fine. I'm a dad. I'm going to look bulky, which. Anyway.
But you have a beard now.
But Mr. Dunn has a beard now.
Mr. Dunn has a beard now.
Hashtag Mr. Dunn has a beard now. Anyway, so I go into the Banana Republic. Right? I go to Banana Republic. I'm like, I need a sweater. And I found this sweater. It's like this maroon joint with like wood buttons.
Very holiday dad sweater.
It's sort of a
wood
holiday.
buttons.
Yeah, it's like a cardigan with buttons and, they're nice wooden buttons.
They're the quality wood buttons.
They might be made of mahogany.
Mahogany.
So I get this sweater and I take it up to the counter. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's an expensive sweater, right? But here's the thing. It's for a television commercial. You can't wear a piece of junk sweater on a television commercial. But here's my entire plan, which might be underhanded. I find this to be unethical, what I think I'm going to do. And if I change my mind, I won't do it. I planned on just wearing it for the shoot and then returning the sweater. Is that unethical, Nicole?
As long as there's not a lot of wear and tear.
There's no wear nor tear.
Yeah, you'll be standing there.
I'm just going to be wearing it flubbing lines, wearing guy liner for an hour and a half, right?
Guy liner.
So actually, I want to ask this question to the audience today. If you think it is unethical to wear something once and then return it with no wear and tear, either way, ethical or unethical, I want you to either hit me on Twitter @PeteThePlanner or email me, askpete@PeteThePlanner.com, and let me know how you feel about that. So Nicole, that's my plan. That's my plan. Okay.
I like your plan. I'm interested to see what others have to say because you know that there is going to be someone who just.
Oh, someone's going to hate that. I think it's unethical. I think.
But it's not like you do that all the time, though. It'd be one thing if it was a pattern that was reoccurring. But
so we've got in studio in this control room with us today. We've got a couple friends. We got Phil Schumann from the Indiana University, and we've got one of his guests who's in town from Bangkok, Thailand, to learn about financial wellness. Just put it out to the room there, Nicole. Phil, do you think that's ethical? You're not going to really hear me. He's not on mic. I'm just curious. Is it ethical or unethical to return stuff like that?
I don't think I have the guts to do it.
Yeah, so it's unethical.
I wouldn't say it's unethical, but like I said, I kind of agree with Nicole that as long as you don't make a pattern of it, it's okay.
I would agree with that. I know people that make a pattern of it.
I do too.
Okay.
I think you're good.
Okay. So anyway, back to the story. So the sweater it's $185. Okay. So, and look, this is where I'm going to lose some people. Like, you bought a $185 sweater? Yeah, I did. I did. It's got wood buttons, y'all, and it's for a commercial. So that's one of the reasons I don't walk around in $185 sweaters. So I get to the counter, and the person at the counter says, "Would you like to put this on your Banana Republic credit card?" And I said, "I don't have a Banana Republic credit card," not in a snooty way, just like, "No, I don't have one." And they said, "Well, you probably want to open one," and I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." Because today only, it's the magical phrase. If you use your Banana Republic card, the sweater is 50% off. And you also get the original 20% off of that, as you always do by using the Banana Republic credit card. So I'm going to do the math for you right now. $185 times 50% is $92.50. But then with another 20% off, $185 is $74. It's $111 off. So Nicole, I put to you, you are faced in a situation in which you're buying something that costs $185.
Yes.
You are morally opposed to opening store credit cards for 1,000 reasons, which we'll get into. And someone says, I can save you. Essentially, it's 60%, 50%, then 20% is 60%, not 70%.
Yeah.
Ends up being 60% off. What would you do? I know. What would you do?
Well, I worked on the retail side of things, so I was that individual who had to ask if you wanted to open a store credit card, and it kind of made my skin curl because I would hear my other associates go, "It won't affect your credit score whether you're approved or not." And first I would just do that slow turn and look at them, being like, "You can't say that to people."
Oh boy.
So I don't know.
What would you do?
No, just because I'm trying not to get into a habit of opening credit cards and just being like, "Oh yeah, I'll pay it off as soon as I get home and see it post." So, what did you do?
Of course I didn't open it. I mean, there's no question I didn't open it. But I mean, but here's the thing. That's really tempting, no?
Yeah.
It's crazy tempting. I was leaving the store and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just make a terrible decision? Now people are going to be listening to this or watching this on PetePlanner.tv and they're going to say, dude, that was a terrible financial decision. You would have saved $111. But here's my point. The whole reason they do that, they've done the math. They know they will win over me. Every time someone offers you to open a store credit card, they are not a fairy of financial wisdom. They are not Warren Buffett in retail form. What they are an extension of an arm of an organization who wants you to make a mistake. They don't want to offer me coupons and discounts because they like me. No one likes me, right, Nicole? No one. Literally, not right. The reason they do it is because they know I will spend more at their store. They know that I eventually will leave a balance on the card and it will carry over and result in interest payments. It will induce spending. Just as your bank wants you to have a credit card to induce your spending, which is, we've done that before, so we're not going to get into that, but that frustrates me. But of course, a retailer wants to induce spending. So I didn't do it. And despite the fact that you would save 60% on that purchase by taking out a store credit card, and here's what you would do. You're saying, because you're going to email me. I know how this works. You're going to email me and say, of course, just take it out, pay it off, and then close the card. Or just keep it open. What's it matter? I understand that. I understand that, but here's what's at stake. That's yet another organization that you have a credit file on if you want to talk about identity theft issues. Number two, who knows in terms of other fraud, people getting use of that card. Then you also deal with the fact that it will induce your spending. You'll be walking by that store and you'll see a sign that says 30% off for card holders today. And you'll go, I'm a card holder. Oh, I'll buy something. It's only 70%. That's 30% off. So I only have to pay 70% of retail. The whole reason that exists is to trick you into stuff. Now, does that make me a conspiracy theorist? No, it's not even a conspiracy. It's just right out in the open. So somehow, I'm probably going to return that sweater. Nicole, I think the whole point of this is what would happen if I returned the sweater? I guess I would have returned it at $74.
Yeah. So what they would have done
I'm so confused.
Is when you returned your sweater,
yeah,
they would have, it's so complicated, especially because you go in and there are different codes that you apply, and had you have used some like coupon or reward.
Did you like the retail? Did you like working the retail?
I did. But also I spent a lot of money on clothes.
That's why they hire people.
Yeah.
No, that's not part of their strategy. Okay, coming up after the break, it's old, angry, gripey guy edition of the $1 Million Plan. A Petepourri, if you will. A Petepourri. I didn't add the T, so it just sounded like Petepourri, which doesn't sound good.
Doesn't work.
I got a medical bill in the mail from the voicemail visit to the doctor. So I'll tell you about it next. It's all next here, right here on the $1 Million Plan. I'm Pete the Planner.
Stop what you're doing. Log on and hit Pete up on Twitter at Pete the Planner.
Primo B, man. Kanye let this one go. Man, sound good to me. I never question the right of any man to voice his opinion as strongly as any can. But then again, many men are citizens of their own little world, so they ain't really fitting in. I'm in the background blending in, camouflaged by the scenery, but I'm
back on the $1 Million Plan, Pete the Planner. It's Old Man Gripey edition of the show today. I get grumpy, but I'm back off the road. My last trip of the year, flight of the year, was to Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. What a lovely place, right? The nice campus, really nice people. Got to meet with some good students. I did a lecture on the economy, separating the fact from the fiction. That's a pretty good lecture. Got to meet with some good students in like the business school and the dean and all this sorts of things. Good time. Back off the road. Get to sleep on my own pillow for the next 60 days or so. No one cares. Okay, here's what happened when I was in Iowa, though. My wife called me and said, Peter, and you met her last week on the show, Mrs. Planner. If you missed that, go to PeteThePlanner.tv and watch the Mrs. Planner edition of the show, first-time guest. She said, Pete, you got a bill in the mail from your doctor's appointment from a few months ago. So if catching you up, in case you just don't live your entire life vicariously through me, a couple months ago I decided, look, I haven't been to the doctor in a while. I need to go get my wellness visit, okay? Every year in our house, we get canceled on insurance, health insurance. It's happened the last 3 years in a row. Why? because healthcare is a disaster in our country. Nothing's wrong with any of us. I mean, sure, I got a screw loose, but nothing's wrong with it. My wife is healthy. My kids, thank God, are healthy. I'm deceptively healthy for what I look like. I'm healthy. But we keep getting canceled. So it's just frustrating. I don't know what doctors I can go to. It's just a disaster. So I go to this doctor, right? I get my appointment. You heard the voicemail a few episodes ago where they're like, you have a mild, and then they hung up. If you missed that, you can find that on the podcast or petepourri.tv. But here's the issue. So I get this bill in the mail, but it was a wellness visit. If you know anything about healthcare, you know that a wellness visit is included in your health insurance plan. Okay, so I pay my monthly premium of, I think we pay $1,100 a month, $1,040 a month for our insurance, a high deductible plan with like a $7,000 deductible. And the only use we get out of it every year are 4 doctor's appointments. Well, it used to be 3, but now I went to the doctor, so it's 4. My wife's doctor's appointment, my son's, my daughter's, and me. So we get a bill. I brought the bill with me. It's right here. $221. So, and it just, there's no details whatsoever. Okay. It just says $221. Please pay the balance listed above as what you currently owe or the minimum monthly payment option by the due date listed above. Okay. Now here's what's the craziest part. There's so many different numbers on here. It says what you currently owe is $221. Minimum monthly payment option, amount due by November 3rd, is $200. So they want me to pay $200 of $221, but the numbers look so close together and it's so confusing. If I were to pay $200, I would have an active balance of $21 and forget about it, and it would probably go to collections. But don't worry, it already went to collections. Here's the collections letter. Dear Peter, Mr. Peter Dunn, at least they showed some respect. I put some respect on my name. Mr. Peter Dunn. All caps, too. It's like they're yelling, Mr. Peter Dunn! We are writing to you regarding your recent medical services. Your account was referred to us by healthcare institution. Why shouldn't I put them on blast? To help you apply for assistance with your medical bills because you have not paid on time. There is no cost to you for this services we provide. The eligibility team. I missed the trash can. Here's the issue. I got sent to collections 2 days after receiving this bill. And I didn't even think I had a bill. So I call up the institution, right? I call up the institution seems a little strong. I call them up and I say, why did I get a bill? Because I had some blood tests done. I got a flu shot, which hurt my arm, right? And I was like, well, I thought all this was covered. And the guy on the line said, let me take a look. Punches into my account. This is like Garrison Keillor now. I'm doing sound effects. This is like old Prairie Home Companion or whatever. And he said, sir, you don't have insurance. Excuse me? Sir, you don't have insurance. It's right here in our records. Okay, so here's the problem. I do have insurance. I filed my insurance with my doctor's office. My insurance is through the hospital I went to. It is a hospital plan. The name of the place I went to is and the name of my health insurance is It's the same thing. I have health insurance through the place I went. He's like, we don't have health insurance on record for you, so you've got to pay the full cost. So when I went to my doctor's office and checked in, you fill out like 80,000 pieces of paperwork. They're like, have you ever had gluten? And it's like, I think so. You write all these things down. They make a copy of your driver's license. They make a copy of your insurance card, all these things. For some reason, it wasn't filed. So the guy, he's like, hold on a second. And he put in my insurance card. He's like, oh, okay. Well, you don't owe anything. I'm a busy person. You're a busy person. Your friends are busy people. You get a medical bill in the mail. You often don't call on it, especially if it's $221. Like, do I want to pay $221? Probably not. No, I don't. But I'm a busy guy. So if I get a bill for $221, I'm going to grab my HSA card, call them up, and pay it. I just happened to ask what it was for because it just didn't seem right. Here's my point. Call on every single medical bill you ever get. First of all, you should get an explanation of benefits. They call it an EOB in the biz. Okay, explanation of benefit. And it should tell you like what you're going to owe. And then you get the bill and then you pay the bill. Well, I didn't get an EOB, which was weird. But I just got this bill. And if I would have just called and paid it, can you imagine how many people do that? Nicole, do you think, okay, and you don't have to, you know how this show works. You don't have to support my ideas. In fact, it's better when you don't. How many people out of 100 do you think get this bill when their insurance was like mistakenly not filed?
Yeah.
And just pay the bill? How many out of 100 do you think pay?
At least 80.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a little high, but that's your opinion. I would go 40.
40.
But that's still a lot.
Yeah, more than it should be.
And by the way, here's the bigger point. So we get upset about health insurance in our country. We get upset about health insurance premiums. But let's not forget, human error is still what really stinks. Okay? This was no computer error. Someone's going to be like, oh, it was a computer error. No, it was not a computer error. First of all, I don't want to pay a lot for health insurance, which I do. But two, I don't want human error to cost me financially. Now, this is even the part we talked about with Mrs. Planner on the show last week. Our premium for next year, because we got canceled, so we had to find another company, and truly nothing's wrong with us, was going to go up 62%. Our premium is going up 62%. So now I will be paying something like $1,700 a month for 4 visits a year. Our health insurance system is incredibly broken. I feel fortunate to have coverage, but you know what? I pay for it. I pay $1,700 a month. Needless to say, I don't qualify for tax credits or any sorts of things like that with the Affordable Care Act. Now, I'm glad the Affordable Care Act exists because I know there are a lot of people out there that don't have coverage and are now able to have coverage, and it's not $1,700 a month. It's really more in line with their financial situation. I'm really grateful for that. You know, if your kid gets sick or you get sick, why should your financial life be ruined? I'm okay with that. But it's also really frustrating that human error will result in so many people calling up a bill like this and just paying it. It's frustrating. I called my physician's office and I was like, look, man, I want to talk to your office manager. I want to give you some feedback. Here's what happened. And they're like, oh, computer error. There's no computer errors. Here's the takeaway from the segment today. Call on every single medical bill. You have to be your own healthcare financial advocate. You need to call up and you say, why did I get this? And the guy said, well, because you don't have insurance. Or call up and say, why did I get this? And you always want to say the following phrase, no, not Mr. Dunn has a beard now, but a different phrase. And that phrase is, can you do any better on the price? Anytime you get a medical bill, call them up and say, okay, I want to talk about this bill. Can you do any better on the price? I don't know, 7 times out of 10, they will. In my experience, when my son Ted was born, we called him up and we're able to do better on the price. Do it. It's worth it because your healthcare dollars are valuable. And I think we've gotten to this point of time where it used to be so simple. Health insurance was so simple 10 years ago, where everyone had a $20 copay. You didn't care what your medical expenses cost because it was just $20 to you. And that is a part of the reason why we are where we are today, because no one was a good healthcare consumer. They consumed a lot of healthcare. They didn't really care, but they weren't really proactive about their health, and they weren't proactive about the economics around their health either. So that's where we are today on the show. Rants by an old guy. Store credit cards, health insurance mistakes. Who knows what's next? Actually, I got an email from a USA Today reader. We'll hit that next. His name is Greg. I haven't really read the email, so who knows what's about to happen. That's all next on the $1 Million Plan. I'm Pete the Planner.
Yeah. Axe hand on the beat. Yes, sir. Glass House. Yes, sir. Mr. Kinetic, Rusty Redenbacher. ATFU. Naptown. Yeah. East of Betty and Fredo. Helicopter choppers. Yeah, y'all ain't hip yet. Cashing in like the end of the game at the casino. I lean so the glare of the rear view don't hit me. Swiftly through the avenues and boulevards. Old soul playing on my speakers. Old soul but young in age, a boss player. Not from the Himalayas, but my fam gave me Gary Indiana.
All right, back on the $1 Million Plan. You know, during the commercial break, I thought to myself, sure, I could answer Greg's email. But we just got the new tax proposal, like the tax reform legislation. Let's go through that. Why not? It's angry old guy gripe session day. So Nicole had a good point in the commercial. Nicole, you were like, well, look, if you're going to get angry,
Yeah.
shouldn't it be on tax reform?
Today's the day.
All right. So I have to say, I've read through a lot of the tax reform. We're going to hit some highlights today. Some of it doesn't bother me. Some of it doesn't make sense. And I think more than anything, and I hopefully this is an apolitical statement, I don't know who to believe. I watched two different interviews with members of the GOP last night that actually conflicted with each other. Like they were on two different channels, and the people said, well, this isn't the bill. And then I turned another one. It was another senator, and they're like, well, this isn't the bill. They were disagreeing with each other. So like, who do you even believe? Here's what is written down, and here's what we know, and here's what I think will matter to you. So they're changing the tax brackets a little bit, but here's the things that I think will impact you the most. There's a change to the state and local tax deduction. Okay, so I'm getting my information here from businessinsider.com. One of the biggest hangups for Republicans in states like New York, New Jersey, and California has been the proposed elimination of the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction. This benefit allows people to deduct those taxes from their federal bill. And that's a pretty big deal. So if you think about this for a second, and we're going to go through some of the tax cuts. If you get those tax cuts, but your deductions are also cut, the net result may actually be an increase. And I think that's what we're going to see with a lot of people is that, yes, their tax rate will get cut. There's no doubt about that. There are some deductions that will increase, like the child tax credit. Great. However, some other things, the other deductions that people use on a regular basis are getting cut themselves. Thus, I think you could actually have a net increase for a lot of people. Elimination of the estate tax, we all know that. No changes to the 401k. So that is good. Although, what I would like to see done, instead of the $18,000 cap or the $24,000 cap for people with the catch-up provision over age 50, I'd like to see that $18,000 number continue to climb. They were talking about dropping it down to $2,400 or $5,000. $18,000 a year needs to be increased to like $25,000 a year, and the catch-up provision should be like $30,000 a year. If you want to solve the retirement crisis in our country, you don't want to disparage people from – disparage is not the word. What word am I looking for? It's not disparage, because that is dissuade. Look, there's a lot of words in this head. You don't know if the right ones come out. There is an increase in the child I almost said the child. Did you hear that?
I did.
Oh my Lord, what is going on?
You're just a little
fired up. I meant child tax. Tax, not child. Increase in the size of the child tax credit. So that went from $1,000 per child to $1,600. I got like $3,200 worth of kids. How many kids do you have, Nicole? How many dollars worth of kids do you have?
0.
0.0. I got $3,200 worth of kids. Anyway, the home mortgage interest deduction, it went down from $1 million cap to $500,000 on new loans. The standard deduction is larger now, so that went up quite a bit. Now, here's where I think it gets a little nasty, really nasty. Some itemized deductions are being eliminated, including the student loan interest deduction. So as it stands right now, if you have student loans that you're paying back and you're paying interest on those student loans, similar to like a mortgage interest deduction, you can write off. You don't have to pay taxes on the interest you pay back to the government on your student loans, right? Well, with this proposal, that would be eliminated. So if you're paying back your student loans, you're paying interest to the government, what happens next? You also pay tax on that. That's a big deal. Who is it a big deal for? Well, primarily people with giant student loans. Lawyers, doctors, people that went to school a really long time but aren't anything. That seems rude. Seems super rude. Elimination of the medical expense deduction, too. Under the current law, individuals who spend over 10% of their income on medical expenses are allowed to deduct part of their cost from their taxes. Now, here's the thing. That will be removed. And if healthcare is going to continue to increase, because we haven't even solved that problem, now you've got people with more medical expenses, and you take away the ability for them to deduct that. It just doesn't seem like that makes a lot of sense. The moving deduction, don't particularly care too much about that. Now, this one's interesting. Unfortunately, the lobby here, so anytime you look at these changes, you say, well, how will this get out of the bill? How will this be eliminated from the bill? And then the question becomes, do they have a big lobbying effort, right? Do these people have enough lobbyists to get this lobbied out of the bill? This one, I don't think will. It creates a tax on large private university endowments. Private universities with assets of more than $100,000 per student will pay a 1.4 million, I can't even talk now, 1.4% excise tax on their net investment income. Places like Stanford, Harvard, Yale. Now, I know we're all playing tiny violins for these organizations, but their endowments are gigantic. But they're about to get gigantic tax bills because of that. That's going to cause a pretty big issue in higher ed, because potentially what it could do is it could increase the cost of college because these endowments aren't able to defray the cost of attendance the way they used to. Now, again, that being said, there's such giant endowments, like they're growing faster than the pace of which those endowments are being used to reduce the cost of education. So I don't know. There's my take, my non-expert tax take on the tax reform legislation. I think we've got a long way to go before that thing is approved. Hopefully, people on both sides of the aisle come to terms. But that's laughable. Of course they won't. All right, coming up after the break, let's go through the biggest waste of money of the week. That and maybe a little bit more. This is the $1 Million Plan, old gripey edition, old guy griping edition. I'm Pete the Planner.
Every day living through the peace of my soul, I remain whole, even in the middle of the pain. Even though my life has the rain, I still remain sane, writing and creating for my life. And my pen is my sword given by the Lord, and I use it to fight the tides of restriction. Sometimes I'm conflicted by myself, looking at the trees too much and can't see the forest. Enemy shall inherit the earth, and I want to inherit something other than the high blood pressure and diabetes. So work is what I gotta do. Stay true to my enemy and water the trees that I sing from, and look out for the lumberjacks running with the gale force wind at my back. Swift and enduring, I remain calm. Swift and enduring, I remain calm. Swift and enduring, I remain calm.
Back on the $1 Million Plan. It's I'm sort of angry today. I don't know why. If you missed any parts of the show, talked about store credit cards and why I didn't save 60% on a purchase this week. Talked about healthcare, a healthcare bill that I received in the mail that was fraudulent. Oh my gosh. And we just hit tax reform. If you missed any part of the show, go catch the show. You can catch the show at PeteThePlanner.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Go to iTunes. Subscribe to the podcast. If you want to watch me perform the show, I'm wearing one of my new favorite sport coats, so you might want to check that out, maybe, at PeteThePlanner.tv. That's a TV as in television. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, the BWOM, is the Bell & Ross BR-X1 Skeleton Tourbillon Sapphire Watch. Building on the success of its Tourbillon Sapphire, the Bell & Ross BR-X1 Skeleton Tourbillon Sapphire Watch takes the minimal approach even further. Once again, its 45 millimeter square case is made entirely from sapphire in 5 parts this time instead of 9, and screwed together ever so carefully at the corners. That reminds me of my favorite joke, Nicole. What did one wall say to the other wall?
Oh no, I don't know.
I'll meet you in the corner. It's a good joke. Do you like that?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The hand-wound skeleton movement has its hour and minute hands reduced to the upper region of the dial, while the tourbillon is visible near 6 o'clock. It offers a 100-hour power reserve and sits on a translucent rubber strap. Nicole, I do not like the phrase translucent rubber strap.
I was just thinking, I was like, the fact that you go to translucent, okay, but rubber strap?
I don't like the word.
No.
I don't like the phrase translucent rubber strap.
No, it makes me feel uncomfy.
I'm very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
You can buy this from Bell & Ross for $385,000. You're walking around with a suburban home on your wrist, attached to you by a translucent rubber strap. Mr. Dunn has a beard now. That's it for this week's show. Please visit us at, not in our office. Don't come to our office. Just, you're not invited. We lock the door. But go to PeteThePlanner.com. You can get there. And of course, listen to the podcast on iTunes. I encourage you to also, we were talking about tax reform and talking about the endowments being taxed with the new tax reform proposal. There is a podcast that Malcolm Gladwell, the author and thought leader, whatever, what do we call him? Iconoclast? I don't know what he is. It's got an afro, and his name's Malcolm Gladwell. And you go to his podcast, it's called Revisionist History. He has a 3-part series on higher ed and money, and I encourage you to listen to that. So go to iTunes, Revisionist History, listen to that podcast. And while you're there, listen to all of his podcasts because they are fascinating. They make for good fodder on airplanes. And since we're doing podcast reviews, I listened to one this week called Dirty John. I know, sounds a little sketchy. It's by the LA Times. Dirty John. Here's what I encourage you to do. Listen to all 6 episodes of Dirty John. Do not read about it. Do not read descriptions. Do not Google it. Don't do anything. Just let it happen because you will ruin it if you look into it. Just listen to it. It's a crime story. It's a true story from the LA Times, as long as it's not fake news, called Dirty John. That's it for this week's show. Hopefully I'll see you next week. I'm going to be here. I'm not going on the road anymore. So that's it. Send you good vibes because good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner, and this is the $1 Million Plan.
If you want to be on this podcast and have Pete fix your money life, then hit us up at PeteThePlanner.com/podcast. You heard me. PeteThePlanner.com/podcast. Log on.
This is for information purposes only. It's not the Swiss financial planning device. Consult a financial advisor.
Released from Everest, the fresh is fresh, and you can call me E.T. Word to John Tesh. Let me bless this harmonic presentation. It's amazing, so amazing. I'm the reason. Salutations, I bring you love, trying greetings from a faraway land. I am the sole controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Love Tron can restore your health. I bring you greetings. Salutations, how you doing? And is that how y'all say it? The tinkling of the keys is an homage to the little star. I sojourn over poetic descriptions of sound and travel to my other world. Out of this world, spaceship on my arm took me home, fueled by the ink and the megabytes and the hypertext transfer protocol, stronger than the Skynet and the Terminator. I push faders into warp speed, glide with ease, creating a breeze they call a black hole. Event horizon, no rear view concerns. This I adjourn, and beats I burn. This I adjourn, and beats I burn. Salutations, I bring you love, trying greetings from a faraway land. I am the sole controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Love Tron can restore your health. I bring you greetings. Salutations, how you doing? And is that how y'all say it?